Welcome back to the Point of Order podcast, an inside look at California politics in the state legislature. I am your host, Assemblyman Josh Hoover. It is Casual Monday here on the Point of Order podcast. And I'm excited to be joined again by Sara Hilliker. I think last time you were on, it was Sarah Marshall, but I could be wrong about that.
It might have been.
But it might have been Hilliker. I'm not sure. But
yeah.
Sarah, welcome back to the podcast. Our wonderful legislative aide in the Hoover office. So welcome back.
Thanks for having me. Excited.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Good. It's always good.
You know, Teresa's on vacation. I didn't really want to bug any legislators because they're all gone.
Yeah.
Right? So, but I did want to sort of recap into session. Mm-hmm. We actually weren't sure if we were going to do an episode today, but I wanted to after all the craziness of last week, I wanted to recap it a little bit. Yeah. And then also, obviously, of the events of, obviously the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Wanted to talk a little bit about our thoughts on that. But before we dive into all that, and by the way, this is probably the least prepared I've ever been for an episode, I feel like. I know it might be shocking to some people, but we actually prepare for this. Yeah. I don't know if it sounds like we do or not, but
I think so.
We actually put together a show doc every week, and this week my show doc is just in my notes app on my iPad because was just putting together some thoughts over the weekend. But it was a very long weekend with session going till 3 a.m. on Friday, and then 2 p.m. I think is when we got done around there on Saturday, right? So definitely was a long weekend. But before we dive into all that, any plans for recess or anything that you want to talk about that's not work related?
Oh gosh, I think my husband Caleb and I have a couple of weekend little getaway trips planned. Nothing too crazy. Recess last year was when we got married and went on our honeymoon.
That's right. That's right.
A little bit more low.
That was September last year. That was a year ago.
That's
crazy.
That was a year ago yesterday.
All right. Yeah. Nice. All right.
So much more low key.
Congratulations. That's 1 year down.
Yeah, 1 year
That's good.
in the books. We've made it.
That's an important thing. 1 year is big.
It
3
is.
years also big.
It is. Yeah. I don't know if it's good or bad, the amount of people who ask you how it's going in your first year. And it's almost are you trying to scare us? It's good. Should it not be? I don't know.
That's cool.
It's a fun time.
It's good that it's good. My first year of marriage was very difficult.
Yeah.
But that was partially because we were 20 years old. We got married. We moved to Los Angeles, so we relocated our entire lives away from our family structure. Mm-hmm. And we had our first son in our first year of marriage. So I would not recommend that necessarily to getting a really good foot forward on your first year of marriage. But we just hit 17 in August, so we definitely made it through at least, so that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. We got married young, but not that young.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for us, stepping into marriage was, not too big of a transition, especially compared to the transition you all went through. So that always helps.
Good. I think you guys probably did it the right way. I think I talked about some of my plans last podcast, so I won't rehash those. But I did want to mention that I was at Costco last night doing my weekly grocery shopping. Yeah. And they have Aura rings.
Okay.
On sale at Costco, and I definitely bought one because it's been in my mind. I've had a couple legislators that have been like, "Hey, you got to get an Aura ring," and blah blah blah. And I'm not a big Apple Watch guy. I don't. Right. I actually had an Apple Watch, the first generation that came out, which was 10 years ago or something. Yeah. And I wore it for a few years, and it was a little invasive and just constant notification. I don't know. I felt like I went back to analog. I felt like it wasn't for me. Yeah. But I do love the idea of the Apple Watch of tracking your, health and activity and stuff. So I'm going to try this out, We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, so you'll have to let us know. I have a lot of friends who have used it and they love it.
Okay.
But
so I will say I can tell that it's already judging me. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And even last night it's you didn't sleep that much, so we're gonna like reduce your activity expectations for today. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, it's been one night, Laura. Like, what is? I don't know. So
already failing.
It's
not meeting.
I did
its
read actually one
expectations.
of my hesitations to getting it was I did read that it's really cool to know your trends and your health information to like create better habits and things like that. But in some ways it can actually harm your mental health too, because you actually know everything. And so like when you don't sleep well or when you're on a bad trend, then you're like thinking about it like, oh my gosh. And then you're stressing about it.
Yes.
So I was a little nervous about that. So we'll see what happens.
That's a real thing. I mean, I'm someone who would not do well with knowing that. I don't need to know all the details. I'm tired, so I know I didn't sleep, that sort of thing. But I feel like it would go to
It would just stress you out. Yeah, we'll see. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
But I do feel like, it's worth a shot. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Also, next episode, which I don't know when that will be yet, but we will have some episodes this fall with some different guests, and we'll talk about that a little bit at the end too. Probably will no longer have a beard, so that'll be
really
okay. I think I'm getting rid of it for now.
Okay.
And I might bring it back again in a couple years.
Just decided.
We took a lot of polls and a lot of focus groups on the beard.
We did,
and I would say that the reactions came back pretty mixed.
Really,
a lot of positive, a lot of very positive. I would say younger people very much into the beard, which I thought was interesting. Older people, not into the beard.
Not into the
beard.
Yeah. Okay.
I had one lady at an event come up to me, very sweet, very, much older woman, and say, Josh, I really think you should shave the beard because people with beards have something to hide.
Oh my gosh, that's not what I thought you were going to say.
I was like, okay, well, I don't want to look like that, so.
Yeah.
But that's not why I'm shaving it. But it's also wife input, And,
that's big input.
There's a lot of different things that discussions that have been had. But no, it'll be good. Actually, I'm not totally mad about it. It's starting to bug me a little bit. But yeah, I think for me, these next few weeks, just decompressing. I mean, we've got a bunch of stuff still with work in the district and stuff. So we're going to be launching all of our community meetings over the next 2 months, doing about 4 community meetings throughout the district and doing some other, community events and stuff. We have Community Service Day in Folsom coming up this Saturday and the Chicken Festival in Fair Oaks. I mean, I'm going to be at that, of course.
Can't miss that.
There's all kinds of stuff going on, but I will spend most of the next few weeks probably just watching football and decompressing from that session. So
it was a pretty crazy one.
It was a crazy one, so let's get into it. End of session.
Yeah.
Just give me your overall reflections, reactions to, this is your second session?
Yep.
Second end of session?
Yep.
Well, I guess, but this is a mid-year, right? So the last one you did was a final year end of session, which is kind of like a real end of session.
Yes.
This was a mid-year, which actually works against you because there's no midnight deadline. And so we were like sitting there like, oh, we're going to get done, at midnight on Friday. And then they're like, no, actually, we're going to be voting on Saturday. And we're just going to, go to 3 a.m. on Friday too.
Yeah.
So
why not?
It was pretty brutal. But give me your reactions just overall.
Okay. So I was kind of reflecting on this and talking with other people in our office. And we have a lot of young people in our office. And really, interestingly enough, what comes to mind is it reminds me a lot of finals week in college. So in the sense that everyone's tired, you've kind of been working crazy hours. You're sort of cramming, for lack of better words.
For sure.
And a lot of the rules kind of go out the window. So you eat junk food. You're drinking energy drinks at like 11 p.m., which is definitely not healthy. And then the other thing is there's a huge culture of walking around to other offices and stopping in, and people bring snacks, and it kind of feels like you're walking around to people's dorm rooms or something.
That's a good description, actually.
Yeah, it's just you're a little sleep deprived, a little crazy, but there's still work to do.
Yeah.
But, it's also fun. And
no, it's I will say, so first of all, I'm glad I didn't have this ring last week. I'm just going to say that because like we didn't sleep. We ate terrible. We didn't get a lot of exercise.
Yeah, it'd be really mad at you.
But I tend to track my calories daily on this app. And I will say last week was the worst week for me in like months.
Really?
I mean, and it was like by a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so bad. Just like we were eating just weird times and way too many calories. And then you're up late, so you're eating more. And I mean, also that's a self-control issue, but we won't get into that. But like, yeah, it was just, it was a terrible week for the health of people.
Yeah.
But I will say that like to your college sort of comparison, I don't know. I feel like the staff has way more fun than the members. Like,
unfortunately,
way more
I
fun.
think that's true.
Especially as someone that was a staffer for like 11 years.
Yeah.
It is so much more. I mean, not that like you're messing around, but it's like you get to actually sort of be in the craziness with people.
Yes.
You know, which I guess I am too with my colleagues, right? But we're literally trapped. Like we can't go anywhere.
Yes.
You can't leave. You can't really. You're sort of confined to this little like square space.
Yeah.
And like staff gets to like roam around, go to different offices, go see different people, and
go outside.
Like, oh, man, go outside. We have this little tiny patio we can go out on.
Oh, that's right, you do.
And like there was again, don't let the assembly sergeants hear this. Okay, we weren't like serious about this, but there was one point where Jeff Gonzalez, assembly member, and Greg Wallace and I were sort of staring at like there's like all the construction going on behind the Capitol. And we're like, I bet you could like walk along the ledge there and then sort of scale over to this like scaffolding and like make your way down and escape somehow. You know, like we didn't actually act on it. Yeah. It definitely crossed our mind at one point.
That'd be hilarious. In the news the next day, a photo, you guys scaling the wall, assembly members escape.
You know what? I wouldn't put it past some of them, honestly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even put it past me, but I was trying to behave. So.
Yeah. Well, you know, the biggest thing that always comes to mind, and we always talk about this in the office, is you all are on camera.
True. That too.
And that's, I mean, you kind of have to get over that, I would assume, to a certain degree, and still be able to
you kind of learn where the cameras are, so you kind of know like when, because they have little red lights on them when they're on. So like if the red light's not on, you can kind of, I'm not on camera. Yeah. But then there's also media cameras. So there's always cameras everywhere. But you kind of know which people talk that you're in their background, right? If that makes sense. So I was getting a lot of photos. There was actually one that was kind of embarrassing, and it was a total accident. But Carl DeMaio is my seatmate. He had just gotten up to speak, and I had looked down at my phone to check something, and it looks like someone screenshotted it and sent it to me. It looks like I'm asleep. See, like my eyes are down, and it straight up looks like I just fell asleep in the middle of a speech, and I'm like, no, that's not what happened. Like, please don't share that photo because I'm not asleep on the floor. But it looks really weird, you know. And so people were texting me like, "You got to wake up," and I'm like, "Trust me, I'm awake. I'm awake." But it was really funny. But yeah, you kind of get used to that though after a while, and sort of. But it's like weird because you have to watch your facial expressions because you can't be like angry or like happy or like, I kind of try to keep a very neutral expression. Yeah. You know, because like I don't know what people are going to say.
Yeah, exactly.
My favorite thing in the world though, and which he already knows, but my good friend, Assemblymember Greg Wallace, who's been on this podcast, sits right behind, sort of in my camera angle. So when I speak, he's sort of like right in the background. And we've just made it this ongoing joke that he just kind of like stares at me endearingly, you know, and like everything that I'm saying is just gold, you know? Yeah. So
I've seen it.
I appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. Yeah. Makes me feel good. Yeah. So that's good. That's all good. So let's dive into a little bit of the sort of the stuff that was passed last week. We can break down some of it. I've got a couple news stories we'll put in the show notes from CalMatter, SACB on some of the big actions that were taken. I made my own list that I sent you. I don't know what's going to be. Excuse me. I don't know what's going to be in sort of the news articles. So I just opened this one. So the first one they have in here is AB 715, which was the bill on anti-Semitism in the classroom. So I would say that's probably a good one to mention because it probably was one of the most contentious and at the same time important, I think, pieces of legislation that we passed.
Yep.
So AB 715 essentially creates a position in the Department of Government Operations that will sort of keep an eye out and try to protect students from anti-Semitism. There were some complaints on the process of, or where the bill ended up in terms of, is this going to be too much oversight over teachers or things like that, or school districts? Interestingly, though, I actually almost preferred the initial version of this bill. I don't know if you remember, like, this has been a work in progress for 2 years now.
Yeah.
And the first version of the bill was really more focused on the ethnic studies curriculum. One of the big things that has really brought out the anti-Semitism on our school campuses, and I mean, there's actually a lot of factors, right? There's a lot going on in the world that is contributing to that. But, one of the other issues where this has become an issue locally is ethnic studies is now a graduation requirement in California. And unfortunately, there are some good ethnic studies curricula. There is also some very harmful ethnic studies curricula that includes a lot of, I would say, anti-Semitic sort of inferences that have been very contested and worrisome and harmful for the Jewish community, and they've been making their voices heard at the local level. Particularly, there's like liberated ethnic studies, which is really paints Judaism and the Jews in a much more negative light. And I think it's personally inappropriate to be in our classrooms. So that was sort of the original focus of the bill 2 years ago when this whole conversation started. Where it ended was, I think a lot of legislators didn't want to be viewed as like being anti-ethnic studies. And so the majority party created this sort of compromise where they're going to create this person to really keep an eye on anti-Semitism in our schools. I think at the end of the day, though, and I stated this on the floor, like, it's important that we're protecting our Jewish students. And I was honestly sort of shocked and disappointed at how much opposition this bill had, including members of the author. The author is a Democrat. The Jewish caucus, all Democrats that were supporting this bill, and all of the opposition was on his own side, right? I was disappointed to see that. It saddened me, but at the end of the day, I was really glad to see. I think the bill got over 70 votes out of 80. So even despite all the concerns and the things that were raised, it did pass pretty overwhelmingly to the governor's desk. So I didn't know if you watched the debates. I didn't know if you had any comments.
I guess I would just say broadly, the conversation gets really interesting when members of the majority party, supermajority, in our case in California, do not agree on social issues. I think, speaking for myself, speaking for certainly members of the public that I know, I think that social issues are sort of a cornerstone of the Democratic Party. It's really interesting when, as you said, it's members of the author's own party that are some of the dissenting voices. I mean,
Could you guys hear? We also had a big disruption after that bill. Could you guys hear that? Because where we were, it was insanely loud. So I would say there was a couple protesters in the gallery after that. As soon as that bill passed, that were making very verbal, loud disruptions for about an hour, I would say at least. And, we won't get into whether or not they should have been removed or whatever. I do think that they were certainly disrupting democracy in this case. And so there's probably a pretty good justification that they should have been escorted out. They were not. They did eventually leave with, in the sort of push of law enforcement. Not physical push, but just, the
encouragement
insistence, of CHP and the assembly sergeants. But it was very disruptive. And it was only like 2 people, but it was so incredibly loud. And it, like where we were, we could barely hear our own debate over sort of the disruption. And it was, I was surprised how 2 people could sort of disrupt it at that volume, right?
That's shocking.
So it's interesting, yeah.
I did not know it was only 2 people. It sounded like a lot more.
Right, yeah.
A lot more. We could definitely hear it.
Okay,
the mics were picking it up when we were watching back in the office on the TV. I will say, and the presiding officer pointed this out, which was good, is that the microphones weren't really, like your personal microphones, weren't really picking them up. So I think at first members thought that they had to speak very loudly into the microphone. So
it was like we're just yelling into our mics. That actually tracks, honestly.
So, I mean, you could kind of hear the noise in the background, but luckily the microphones you all have are... do a good enough job that,
all right, that's good. Yeah, that's good to know.
So
I love it.
But yeah.
It's interesting actually you say that because Natasha Johnson, and we should actually get her on the podcast at some point.
Yeah,
that would be really cool.
That'd be great.
Literally, my former colleague, Assembly Member Bill Saley from Riverside County was tapped to serve as the acting deputy attorney for the Trump administration, or U.S. attorney, sorry. And so his seat opened up to a special election that was completed like a week ago, and Natasha Johnson won that seat. She is one of my new colleagues taking over that district, but her first week in the legislature was this last week. Yeah, which to me is like, would that make you want to quit? I mean,
trial by fire.
It was funny to talk to her throughout the week because she came in very excited and energetic and optimistic. And by the end of the week, she was like, this is so ridiculous. And it's been 1 week.
Oh, that's so discouraging.
And I think she was just exhausted. And she's like, is this how it always is? And it's like, well, technically this is the worst it gets. But anyway.
Yeah.
But she had to give her first speech. And actually, let's just talk about those bills since we're on it.
Yeah.
She had to give her first speech on the charter school legislation. So, just to sort of set the stage for that, I'll just tell the story and then we'll talk about charter bills. But we kind of all had talked about who's going to speak in support of SB 414, which was a bill by Angelique Ashby that I think struck the best balance of all the available bills between providing more accountability to bad actors in the charter school space while also preserving educational freedom. And, Natasha was like, I actually have comments on this that I'd like to say. And we're like, I was going to speak on it, but I'm like, well, if you want to do that, go for it. Let's make sure you get your speech in there. But her very first speech in the legislature is given during yelling in the gallery at 1 a.m. On a Friday. I mean, it was probably the craziest first speech anyone's ever given on the assembly floor in terms of the actual context of what she was having to deal with.
Right.
She crushed it. She did a great job. Yeah. Everyone gave her a standing ovation after she finished because the assembly member Lowenthal, the speaker pro tem, was like, that's her first speech, and everyone gets up and just applauds and everything. It was hilarious, but I felt so bad for her because I'm like, oh my gosh. But on the note of the charter bills, though, that bill did pass. SB 414 passed both houses of the legislature, which was honestly a huge, I would say, victory for school choice.
Yeah.
Angelique Ashby put a lot of work into making sure that bill struck the right balance. There were 2 other bills also in consideration. AB 84 by Assemblymember Murasucci that I would say did not strike the correct balance. It was much more... it certainly had some accountability provisions in it, but it also had a lot of harmful harmful content that would actually harm charter schools in California,
right.
make them harder to be authorized, limit enrollment, and reduce funding.
Yep.
Just a lot of different objectionable things that I, especially as a charter parent,
right.
did not want to see happen
Right.
in California. And then at the last minute, there was also another bill introduced, AB 494, which would have extended the moratorium on non-classroom-based charter schools. Both of those, I would say, harmful bills were moved to the inactive file on Friday and died. And I would say the good bill made it through. And that does not always happen. So I was very excited to see that. And, I didn't know how,
Yeah, I mean, sometimes those wins are rare, and almost going back to AB 715, I mean, in my somewhat limited experience, you typically only see that when it's members of, their own majority party who have concerns. But what's really great, and I wish members of the public got to see this or were more aware of this, is when that dissent happens, that's what really sort of cracks open the conversation.
Yeah.
And that's when you have good committee and floor debate, because it's not just the supermajority sort of doing what they do and being the supermajority opinion, and distinguishing all other positions. Yeah. So it's great to see from a staff perspective. I think it's also really great to see from a public perspective of renewed faith in the process, at least in those instances.
I love to see it because it really does, it demonstrates that, Democrats, Republicans, they don't all agree on even amongst their own sides, right, with everything. And I think that's important for the public to recognize and be sort of demonstrated to the public is, our job is to debate the merits of policy. Sometimes, policy is not partisan. There's people on both sides of both aisles that are going to disagree with something. I think a really good example of that, now that we're on the topic, is there was maybe 2 bills that died or 3 bills that died the whole week. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if you remember off the top of your head. But we don't kill a lot of bills. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. But there was one bill in particular that died on the very last or second to last day. I believe it was Friday. It was a bill by Assemblymember El Hawari on felony diversions.
Yes.
So it would have created essentially diversion program for some very, in my opinion, I'm going to say my opinion, serious felonies and violent felonies. Yeah, although agree. The bill itself and the author, talked about how, no, this only applies to nonviolent felonies, right? That is a whole nother loaded term that we can talk about. But it was really great to see my colleague from Sacramento, Maggie Krell, who's a prosecutor, stand up and say, this bill is dangerous. Yeah. This bill is harmful. It will hurt victims. Yeah. She got up on the floor very bravely, I would say, and spoke out against that bill. That bill failed. I don't remember the final vote, but it failed by a lot. Yeah. It failed by a lot. And it was actually really sad because, I was glad the bill failed. Right. But the debate was really interesting because Assemblymember Krell got up and tried to make this point that I think has to be made and the public is often unaware of, is that what we call a nonviolent felony in California is in a lot of cases not nonviolent. Right? You can define something as nonviolent. That doesn't mean that it's, most people would not perceive it as violent, right? So, for example, one of the things that Assemblymember Krell brought up was animal abuse, right? Animal abuse in California is considered a nonviolent felony. I think most people would view that as pretty violent. If you're physically abusing an animal. Yep. There's a lot of other terrible examples for, people as well, such as rape of an unconscious person. There are a lot of other, I would say, things that people, if they were asked, do you consider this violent or nonviolent? They would say violent. Yep. Are not considered violent in the code in California. And so it was actually I was so glad to see some of my colleagues in the majority party pointing that out. Yeah. Hey, this says nonviolent. That doesn't mean it's good. That doesn't mean it's you stole some candy from the store or something,
Yeah.
right? Like that's not what we're talking about here. And I was just really thankful to see that, that bill failed. So
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got here. All right, so in the news story, I'm trying to let the news story guide this, even though I have it in a little different order.
Yeah.
But one of the big ones, I don't even think I had in the text I sent you. There was a big bill that is attempting to ban federal law enforcement from wearing masks.
Yes.
So that bill did pass and was sent to the governor.
Yeah.
I don't think it passed. I don't remember if it passed overwhelmingly or not. I think maybe it did. I'm not sure. But well, it'll be interesting to see what the governor does on that. I think there was a lot in that. There's a lot of problems with that bill, even setting the policy aside, which I personally, do. First of all, I don't want police running around with masks on all the time. I would say that is probably something that we all are like, yeah, that would make us a little uncomfortable.
Right.
But second of all, also allowing law enforcement to have the flexibility based on the circumstance to cover their face when it comes to something like protecting their privacy, protecting their own family security, if they're involved in something that is very, difficult or going to put their family at risk, whether that's immigration enforcement, whether that's going undercover, whatever that might be, right?
Right.
I think them having the flexibility to do that is still important. That being said, the bill, I don't think that we can tell federal government what to do, first of all. I don't think this bill can actually apply to them.
Yeah.
Which means it's only going to apply to California law enforcement. And the bill exempted state level law enforcement, like the CHP.
Yeah.
Which, fine. That's fine. I don't oppose that. But it's so we're literally applying this to local law enforcement in our communities. Under the guise of wanting it to be for federal law enforcement. It's just, I think there's a lot of policy challenges with the bill itself. And so it'll be interesting to see what the governor does on that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a little unfortunate because we see that a lot with legislation, right? These broad stroke bills that kind of, are going for big messages or big impact, but whether it's federal preemption or it's carve-outs or whatever it is, the bill at the end of the day, either A, doesn't achieve what it set out to do, or B, is misrepresenting what it'll look like in practice, anything of that sort. And hard to vote on a bill like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So
there was also mentioned in the story, a measure to allow Uber and Lyft drivers to unionize, also a compromise with bringing down insurance costs for rideshare companies. That did pass. We talked about that a lot on the last episode, so we don't have to get into it too far. Another big bill that passed, SB 79, on allowing more housing, or at least making it easier to build housing near transit stops. I think this bill is something that there's a lot of stuff floating around on what this bill is going to do. I will say that at the end of the day, there are a lot of narrowing provisions that were added to the bill throughout the process. I do not think this is going to be the end of the world when it comes to destroying our communities or things like that. The definition of major transit stop is actually pretty narrow. But that being said, that was also a pretty spirited debate that was not partisan. There were Republicans opposed, there were Republicans that supported, there were Democrats opposed, there were Democrats that supported. I think but I think the comment that I made on it is one where I actually see a pretty big generational divide on bills like this, where you see younger legislators really more willing to support housing bills, simply because they have seen firsthand the cost of housing and how inaccessible it has become to not just purchase a home, which I think everyone would like to do. That is the American dream. Home ownership and being able to have secure housing, that has become so unattainable, or so difficult to obtain, I should say. But then also even just the cost of rent, alone has gone up substantially. I was watching a podcast the other day. It's back in my parents' generation, the cost of a house was, I believe, 3 times their annual income.
Okay.
If that makes sense, on average.
Yeah.
today, for people in our generation, it's, I say our generation, like, we're the same. You're so much younger than me. But anyway.
I don't think I'm way younger.
I don't know. You're like, I don't want to claim you. Like, that's, it's like 7 times your annual income is the cost of a house now.
Yeah.
I mean, that is so, and there's so many other statistics you can get into on why housing is so much more difficult. I've seen comparisons to housing cost increase with wage increases, obviously, huge difference there.
Yep.
But I think that's why it really has become sort of a generational divide where you're seeing younger people support housing bills. And the point that I made on it is, I don't think the bill's perfect. And there's actually some cleanup that I want to work with the author on next year. But I think the point is that if we want to bring down the cost of housing, we have to increase supply. That's really the only way you do that. The government can't bring down, the cost of housing. It has to be the market.
Right.
And in order to bring, it's just supply and demand, right? It's
right.
In order to bring down costs, you have to increase supply. And I think that means increase the supply of all types of housing. We've seen that where if you build a bunch of new houses, people will upgrade into those, but then it creates a whole new availability of housing stock for people in lower income brackets. So I think it'll be interesting to see how this bill gets used. I will say with these major scary housing proposals that we've seen in the past, the result of them has been pretty minor. It's been like they sort of get talked about like this is going to be a disaster, and then it actually turns out that they get kind of underutilized because there's still a lot of barriers to building housing in California, whether it's CEQA or whatever it might be. So it'll be interesting to see, what happens with that. But
yeah, I think that's a good point because so much of the processes we have here in California, whether it's housing or really anything else, is so wrapped up in red tape.
Yeah.
Where you may have what seems like a pretty major proposal, but really it's just going to get caught in the web of what we already have, in the law. So, I think you're right there that they tend not to have the impact people are maybe so afraid of or maybe even hoping for on either side of the argument.
That's kind of the funny thing. It's like if a bill isn't going to provide extra housing, there's really no reason to fear it because it's not going to actually achieve its intended purpose.
Right.
But I do think that one of the things I would say appreciated about the bill is that it tried to create a process for communities that are doing a good job.
Yeah.
Which I would put my community in that bucket.
Yeah.
Because my community is building housing. It
ton of housing.
A lot of housing, a lot of market-based housing, a lot of there are also some affordable housing.
Yeah.
But our communities are doing a lot of work to actually, solve this problem. And I would say that, one of my big issues with this state is that there's communities that aren't doing that. And most of them are in the Bay Area. They're in Los Angeles. They're in their big cities. They're in places they're in coastal communities like, Marin and other areas that are truly just not welcoming to people moving in. That I think is where this bill is going to have the most impact. This bill was not written to, make sure the suburbs are doing better. Because if you look at what the suburbs are doing, they are building housing. Yeah. This bill was written to make sure Cupertino is building housing, to make sure San Francisco is building housing, to make sure, these really dense populated communities that have a bunch of jobs, but literally have no housing availability, are doing a better job. And so, I think that it'll be interesting to see how, if we see improvements in those areas.
Yes, how things go in practice.
Following this measure.
Yeah.
Let's see. We checked that one off. There were some artificial intelligence bills. We don't need to go into that, but I think, there were a few on artificial intelligence and further regulating that. Yeah. There was a proposal to require tests of automated decision systems. The bill on workplace surveillance was shelved. We already talked about the felony bill. Well, we're like way ahead of this article. It's like this,
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like anything else, especially what we're seeing right now with AI is as the industry grows, the need or, the need for legislation grows with it. So you see this wave of legislation come through and on both sides of the argument. But, you can kind of see what direction the state and even country is moving in based on what members deem, necessary to work on.
So there was some social media bills too, but the one I didn't put it on our list, but the one I wanted to shout out was Assemblymember Buffy Wicks did pass her bill on age verification for social media companies. Essentially, creating a framework for being able to verify the age of an individual. And there was a lot of privacy concerns raised about that. So I actually wanted to point out one of the great things she did, I think, in terms of refining this bill over time, was it would require basically an establishment of an age range. So it wouldn't necessarily have to be your age, like you're 14 or you're 12 or 16 or whatever, but it would have to put you in a category. So like you are 12 to 13 or you're 11 to 12 or whatever, So I think she did a really good job balancing those privacy concerns and really addressing those while also making sure that, yes, we can verify kids' ages on the internet. And if we're a parent that doesn't want our kids getting into certain things, there is a protections in place, right, that, will verify, the ages of kids so they're getting appropriate content.
Right.
And I think this will open up a lot of new policy opportunities as well, because so many of the concerns expressed about regulating social media have mostly been around, well, we can't verify people's ages. Right. Once you can do that, I think, there's a lot more policy opportunities available to you. So it'll be interesting, but I really appreciated her work on that.
Definitely.
Yeah, I looked at SAC-B. We covered all that too. I mean, on our list, a few of the other ones, there was a big cap and trade proposal that did pass. I would say it passed with very little input from a broad coalition of stakeholders, if I may be charitable about that. In the past, this has generally been something we've talked about for a while leading up to a vote.
Right.
This bill was largely written behind closed doors. And then presented in the final day of session. And that's just not a process that I will welcome. If you want my support on something, I need to at least have the ability to read it and digest it. Unfortunately, that just didn't happen with this legislation. I think I'm very concerned about this extension of cap and trade, which essentially extends our market system for trading credits for climate offsets and things like that, to really help reach the majority party's climate goals, right? I think the extension, written the way it was written, is going to have a cost impact on consumers. In fact, if you, the LAO, our nonpartisan legislative analyst office, was asked to review this proposal. I don't know if you saw this letter, but they actually wrote a letter to the legislature. They were asked to review the proposal for cost implications, right?
Right.
How is this going to cost our constituents, right, is essentially what we're trying to figure out. And they basically wrote back and said, look, we would love to do that, but you're asking for this in like 3 days, or I forget however long they were given to do this analysis. And they literally said, we do not have the time to analyze this large of a proposal and get an accurate, reading on its cost implications on consumers. And so, they basically said, could we do it? Yes. Had you asked us and actually given us time to do it, but you didn't do that. So the fact that even the nonpartisan LAO didn't get an opportunity to look at how much this is going to cost people. It's really maddening to me. It's like, and that's where I get worried is I think this is going to have be a big cost driver for consumers and constituents.
Well, then they hear that, turn around and say, okay, let's vote on it.
Right.
Let's force a vote on something that has major ramifications. And our own office is is telling us that we didn't provide sufficient time for them to provide a cost analysis.
Yeah.
But never mind that. Let's all vote on it anyway.
Let's vote on it first, then we'll figure out how much it costs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sadly, it is how we do policy sometimes in the state, and wish it could be done better. Another big bill for wildfire victims, the Wildfire Fund was extended, so a basically funding mechanism to continue making our state's wildfire fund for victims of wildfire solvent over the next, I believe, decade or more. That is something that will help victims. And in the long run, actually will likely help keep rates lower, just from the standpoint of energy rates, simply from the standpoint of the bankruptcy or financial fallout that would come from a utility going under would have a huge impact on ratepayers. And so a lot of the money in this bill is going to come from investors. It cannot come from ratepayers, which I was very glad to see that. But really, at the end of the day, going to keep this fund solvent for victims and stabilize, I would say, the energy market, at least on this topic, for a few more years. So speaking of energy, we also passed a big energy regionalization bill that I think will actually help consumers save money in the long run by connecting California with a larger Western grid that is going to have, obviously economies of scale and benefits to it that I think consumers will, hopefully see in their rates at some point. At the very least, stopping rates from increasing, which, the sad thing is, on balance of the things we passed on both sides of that equation, we could still see rates go up because California still passes policies that put cost pressures on, utilities and rates. But hopefully this will help balance that out a little bit. Last one, I guess AB 495 passed. That was the legislation on essentially care authorization forms. The bill was written in a way where it basically said someone could attest that they are now able to care for a child without the parent's signature, without the parent's consent. It was originally targeted at families dealing with deportation, or at least that was why it was introduced. But the implications of it were very broad. That bill did pass, although I would say, because I've been getting a lot of questions about it from constituents, it was amended substantially to take out that elimination of the parent's signature, to take out the provisions relating to non-relatives being able to do this. It actually changed the language to being only relatives, maybe distant relatives, but it would have to have some family tie. I still think the bill was a little too broad. That being said, it was far better than the version that existed before it, and so I think that was a minor victory, even though the bill passed. And then, on our side, we had a couple bills that they really made us sweat on. Literally did two bills, an hour before we adjourned? Something like that. It was insane. But I think the big one that I'm excited about is AB 1246. And we'll do a write-up in our newsletter, too, on some of the other stuff that we got passed. But AB 1246 to help the craft distiller industry. So we've got some of these small craft distilleries in our district, these small businesses that have relied for many years on the ability to ship their product directly to consumers. Their ability to do that actually expires at the end of this year. And so if the governor signs it, our bill will extend that for one more year so that we can hash this out again next year, apparently, and help some of those small businesses. So always excited when we pass a good small business bill. So we can wrap there on the overview. Hopefully, there was hundreds of bills last week, so you can't get to all of them, but hopefully we touched on some of the major ones. I think before we let you go, I wanted to play our clip of the week, which is a Charlie Kirk clip. Obviously, the assassination of Charlie Kirk last week, I don't know, it shook me. I don't know, maybe before we play the clip, how did it hit you when it happened? Because I know it hit me really hard. But what were your thoughts on it?
tragic, heartbreaking. It was an interesting experience being in the office all together because we have a pretty upbeat office.
Yeah.
We're really social with each other, and just we had the news on, so we were kind of keeping up with, information as it became available. But I mean, quiet, really reflective. There was that, in between moment when we had heard he had been shot, but hadn't heard that he had passed away.
Yeah.
And the brief hope and prayers during that time. I mean, it was a weird thing to experience. And
it was.
You were keeping us updated with what you were hearing. I mean, it's horrible.
I don't want to overstate this, but I really do feel like it's going to be a big moment in history. Like it will be looked back upon as a very big moment in our politics. That someone who obviously had his own political beliefs, a political activist, but also a man of faith and a dad and I would say the leader of a very young conservative movement, was killed for his beliefs, right? And I think that is horrific. It's horrifying. It hits home for me because, obviously as a conservative, as a younger conservative, again, still putting myself in that category.
I think you fit in that category.
With a family, right? With 3 beautiful kids, an amazing wife, a family that literally is my purpose, right? And yet someone who has beliefs and really tries to fight for what is right, and what I believe is right, and make a positive impact on the world, and participate in dialogue with people I disagree with, which is something really meaningful to me. I know it was really meaningful to Charlie. To see someone like that, something happen like that to him is it was really difficult to process. I would say I'm still probably struggling to process it. We actually wore pins for Charlie on the floor for the final 3 days or 4 days of session that Natasha Johnson actually provided us. So that was very sweet.
Yeah, there's definitely an element, and I don't know if you felt the same of this can't be real.
Yeah,
this
for sure
couldn't have happened, and I think I went through that, for many days after, and still today. And I think what's really unique about this experience is, I still open my phone and his videos pop up. So,
it's wild,
this
right?
is someone who is still really present in our political spaces.
That is fascinating.
But has passed away.
Yeah.
So unlike a family member or a friend passing away. Maybe you have photos to look at, but this is someone who you turn on the news and you're hearing his voice.
Yeah.
Which I think adds to that. It goes 2 ways. I think it adds to that feeling of this can't be real.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm sure you saw his wife speak.
I did. Yeah, I watched her. That was I actually teared up. That was hard to watch.
Yeah, I did too. It was.
But
knowing that it would be his want for his mission to continue. Yeah. Also. If you can celebrate anything at a time like this, knowing that his voice is still being heard and making a difference, and now with, it sounds like, even greater reach.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to ask you, because I will say I met Charlie once.
Okay.
I had the opportunity to meet him to do an event, sort of. It wasn't like an event together, but we were both invited to speak at the same event in Placer County, and so it was really cool to get to meet him. This was a few years ago, so he was still in his 20s. I would say he was a big deal, but he was still kind of rising in terms of political influence.
Sure.
Obviously, Turning Point USA was something he had founded many years before that I met him, right? And so he was doing that whole college campus tours and things like that. And, I was just so impressed. I remember he was the keynote speaker at the event we were at. And I was just so impressed as someone who really hadn't known his thing that well at the time. the grasp of he had on the knowledge he had on a lot of the issues that really mattered, sort of the maturity beyond his years of like, and his confidence just in, you know, his ability to communicate. I mean, it was, you know, I know there are people that disagreed with a lot of things that he believed in. And I think he would say that that's part of democracy, right? That's what we want. That is part of our discourse. But just his ability to really capture, I think, the minds of not just the youth, but really just audiences, you know, in a really special way. But I was going to ask you as someone who is, I would say, on the younger side, because I would say that Charlie was not in my, like, I was not his main demographic. I feel like I'm a bit beyond his main target audience. But I will say that, like, I texted my son and he knew immediately. He had seen the videos. This is another, by the way, like, side note, terrifying, awful thing. My kids don't have social media. I don't allow it. But it doesn't really matter because everyone saw the video immediately. Like,
all their
the
friends.
Horrific, violent shooting close-up video. I'm sure, I know my son's seen it. He saw it on a friend's phone. Guaranteed. I was horrified by it. I think everyone was, but I do worry about the younger generation's being desensitized to that level of violence, right? Because it's so easily accessible. He was really sad about it, but like, as soon as this happened, it spread through the, you know, all of the young people knew immediately. I mean, it was like, I don't know how that takes place, but it was like, you didn't even need to tell them. They knew. I mean, that's how big of a deal he was to younger people, whether you agreed with him or not. Or whether you know, everyone knew about what he was doing and what mission he was on. And so I just thought it was interesting talking to my 16-year-old son who knew immediately. But how do you feel like this is going to impact sort of younger people in terms of voting or faith or, you know, political beliefs or whatever it might be?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't want to get the number wrong. I think I saw online that the number of, I think it's high schools and not colleges, but one or the other that's reached out to Turning Point to open a chapter.
I did see that today,
I want to say
it's like,
is 14,000 the wrong number?
I don't know. I think I was going to say even higher. So that might be,
but just, crazy amounts of students wanting to get engaged and again, you know, it's that lasting impact and it's, again, it changes the healing process, I'm sure, but when you have shared yourself with the world the way he did and the way his family did, you know, there will be information out there for people to consume for years to come. And things for people to rally behind if that's what they so choose to do. But I mean, I think the reaction is going to be pretty monumental.
Well, I'm still praying. Nicole and I are still praying for his family. I mean, his beautiful kids, obviously his wife. That human part is really difficult. You know, I think, you know, I was always appreciative of his movement, not because I agreed with every single thing he always said, although there were a lot of things that I think we aligned on, but more so because he was challenging the sort of suppression of free speech and sort of this culture of indoctrination on college campuses. Something that, you know, college is supposed to be a place where you get exposed to ideas that challenge you. It's supposed to be a place where your own ideas are tested and debated and sort of challenged. And he created that opportunity in a way that colleges used to create that opportunity. Just going to universities, you're supposed to get that no matter what. And I think in recent years, there has been a huge shift away, you know, with I don't know, there's a lot of examples I could use, but with, you know, the microaggressions and the sort of safe spaces and all of these things that have sort of had their moment in the university space and in university life that have really pushed back against that experience about being challenged, about, you know, speaking your mind, about, you know, actually engaging in dialogue. And he brought that back. And I think whichever side you're on, we should want more of that on our college campuses, you know? And so I think it was only fitting that he passed away doing what he loved, which was engaging in open dialogue, as tragic as it was. But I think that will, you know, it's you know, I think that will live on. But I did want to play a clip because, you know, there's a lot. I think Charlie gets misrepresented a lot. Yeah. He certainly had positions that people disagreed with, and that's fair. But he also had a lot of heart for people. And I think that when you hear in the media, like, oh, he was this hateful person, and, you know, I always want to tell people, like, just go watch like 5 of his videos. It doesn't matter which 5, just pick 5. And, you know, you'll probably find a couple that you really don't like, right? Like he's saying something, a position that, or advocating for a position you don't like, but go watch how he engages with people and come back and tell me if that interpretation of him is accurate. Right. Because even when he disagreed, he so often did it with grace, you know? Yeah. And respect, right? So, but this is one of my favorite clips from him, engaging with father and son. And I just wanted to give a little flavor for people. Yeah.
Hello guys, my name is Joey. I brought my father with me. He's a very liberal father.
Our family's divided. We're divided the same way the nation is divided.
I'm conservative, by the way.
Will anything ever be remedied? A nation divided against itself will not stand, neither will a family divided against itself.
Why do you think your son is conservative?
I have no clue. I'll let him answer that question.
That's a bad answer. You know, hold on a second. You as a father should listen to your son.
I listen to him all the time.
Hold on, but then you just said you don't know.
I don't know where he went so bad. I mean, come on. It's like, I don't know where he went wrong. I don't know how he went off the rails.
Would the smarter of the two like to chime in here? Yeah.
Absolutely. So I used to be, at one point, on my father's side. Upon doing my own research and seeing things firsthand, I've switched sides. We talk every day about politics to the point where it's divided us. And so for him to say that he does not know where I stand is
So let me ask you, do you think that maybe he wants to believe government will do good? Maybe that's...
Of course. Okay,
now maybe your son is going more conservative because he thinks government hasn't done a lot of good. Is that maybe a fair charitable interpretation?
That makes relative sense.
Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. Here's what I'll just say in closing, guys. Never let politics get in the way of the beautiful relationship between father and son. My advice first is, for the son, to the father, understand he comes from a different generational perspective. He thinks government is probably a good force. Now your son, understandably, is seeing it harder than ever to own a home. He's seen a border wide open. He's seen lies from politicians. He's seen the enrichment of the ruling class. And instead of interrupting and want to get in an edge, smartly be like, maybe my son is processing a way that I might not agree with, but he's growing up in a different circumstance than I ever would.
Yeah, so anyway, I love that clip because it's like, first of all, this is what I always tell my, when students ask me, what advice do you have? You know, I always say, like, hey, there's more important things in life than politics. Yeah. And, you know, in college especially, right, you're so wrapped up in your politics and your sort of, you know, what side you're on or whatever. And it's just like, guys, like, yes, all that stuff is important, but there are so many more important things to life. And so I just always loved that Charlie clip.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm glad you thought to bring that one up. I think it's really true to the heart of what he was doing, facilitating these conversations and also having his priorities straight, and that family, you know, is bigger than this.
For
and
sure. So that's great. I don't want Jesse to kill me, but he might allow for this one. I don't know, but I was gonna play you one more. Because he was also a man of faith. Yeah. And so I wanted to just play this one really quick.
Yeah.
When you're on campus, do you ever feel unsafe when it gets to this amount of numbers?
We don't want to have to be accountable to God when this life passes. And he asks, why did you not trust in me and not fight evil? My call is to fight evil and to proclaim truth. That's it.
If everything completely goes away, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. The most important thing is my faith. I'm just flesh and bone, but more importantly, I'm a soul. And that soul is accountable to one being. What matters is your relationship with the divine, your relationship with your family, your kids, and maybe a close collection of friends, and your relationship with the truth. Christ wants us to be salt and light. Now, what are the two characteristics of salt and light? They change the environments that they come in contact with. They do not affirm, they do not conform, they change for the better. We as Christians are called to change the environment that we come in touch with. Before I go on a college campus, my prayer is very simple. God, use me for your will. God is sovereign above all. What is God's plan when I go on a college campus? I just believe I will only tell truth, I will not compromise, and I'll love on the lost. The specific teachings of Christ is go make disciples of all nations. Jesus called us to love children. Jesus called us to tell truth. Jesus called us to contest in the public square for his purposes. I'm far more interested in what God wants of me than what I want from God. And what God wants from me is a life fighting for truth.
So we're going to wrap this, but I was just going to close on this. I brought a real newspaper, by the way. Have you heard of these? Have you heard of these?
No, I haven't, actually.
Things? It's
what is
actually
that?
like a website they print on paper.
Why would they do that?
But I was actually with my dad this morning. I read the newspaper to him every Monday morning, and we were reading through the paper. But Ezra Klein, who is a leading voice on the left, I would say a very thoughtful voice on the left, wrote a great piece over this last week on Charlie. And so just wanted to close sharing some of his thoughts. He starts with the foundation of free society is the ability to participate in politics without fear of violence. You can dislike much of what Kirk believed, and the following statement is still true. Kirk was practicing politics in exactly the right way. He was showing up to campuses and talking with anyone who would talk to him, and he was one of the era's most effective practitioners of persuasion. Let's see. He also gets into, He talks a lot about a taste for disagreement is a virtue in a democracy. Liberalism could use more of Charlie's moxie and fearlessness. In the inaugural episode of his podcast, we played part of that on this show, actually. Governor Gavin Newsom of California hosted Kirk, admitting that his son was a huge fan. I always thought that was funny. But then he really closes on, there is no world in which political violence escalates but is contained to just your foes. Political violence is a virus. It's contagious. We've seen periods of it throughout our country. And at the end of the day, when political violence becomes imaginable, it becomes a tool of very bad people to harm our culture. He closes with, Kirk and I were on different sides of most political arguments. We were on the same side on the continued possibility of American politics. It is supposed to be an argument, not a war. It is supposed to be one with words, not ended with bullets. We are all safe, or none of us are. And I think that's been the point I've been making to my colleagues is we have to, nobody wins if we allow this to continue. Right. And so we're going to close with that. We're going to have some great guests over the next few weeks. I think I'm working on confirming former Assemblymember Mike Gatto, who's a really thoughtful guy. I'm going to be inviting Sue Parker on, our chief clerk in the Assembly. We'll see if she accepts, but she might. She listens occasionally.
That would be
interesting.
And
then might even have the lovely and talented Mrs. Hoover, my wife Nicole, on a podcast. I don't know. We're still in negotiations for her salary and everything. Anyway, continue. Reach out if you have ideas. Point of Order pod@gmail.com. Follow us on socials at Point of Order Pod. And Sarah, thanks again for coming on. And
thanks for having me.
We'll see you again next time.